Good morning, good afternoon, whenever you're watching this. I'm Jason Butt with the UGAsports.com Quick Take. Thank you so much for joining me as we break down a couple of news items and then get into the topic at hand. And of course, I would be remiss if we didn't go over a couple of headlines that have surrounded the program over the past week. First, we'll just go right into it. Stetson Bennett, after a crazy amazing career at Georgia. He capped it off in Dallas, already getting ready for training for the combine, NFL draft, all those sort of things with the public intoxication arrest. Hopefully that's it for him. I think we've all been young. We've all been dumb. So things like this, not ideal, not anything you want to brag about. But at the end of the day, you just could chalk it up to somebody in his mid-20s, a 25-year-old, letting things get out of hand and kind of being foolish. But if that's the only thing that he does that's of this kind of nature, he'll be okay, and he'll go do his thing, whether it's in the NFL, whether it's being a backup in the NFL, whether it's playing in one of the other leagues or any other kind of career that he chooses, whether it's going to law school or going to, any sort of business venture. So thankfully it wasn't anything, too wild. Your public intoxication arrest, knocking on some doors. Not great. Obviously it could be worse. The other one I wanted to touch on real quick is Todd Monkin. This is going to be something to keep an eye on because my understanding with Todd Monkin, this goes back years. Actually, when I was covering the NFL, and his name would be out there, and he's an interesting guy because my understanding with Todd Monkin is he just wants to coach. He's not really interested in being a head coach. He was at Southern Miss for 3 years, and they got better every year. And then he left to be an offensive coordinator with Dirk Cutter when Dirk Cutter was the head coach at Tampa Bay, and he didn't call plays until toward his last season when they needed a spark and they needed to change things up. Didn't have a great situation in Cleveland in his last year. Comes to Georgia, amazing system, as has done wonders. Every year it's gotten better. They've gotten more explosive. Now they might have the most speed in the NFL in the NCAA next year at the receiver position. And he's flirting with so far it's Tampa Bay and Baltimore that we know of. So my understanding, being an offensive coordinator is really what he wants to do. That's all he wants to do. But it comes down to this. There's a recruiting aspect. A lot of coaches don't like recruiting. They just want to coach. I think Monken falls into that category. And then you've got the you've got the egos of once you're in the NFL and having to coach guys who may not want to be coached at this stage of their life and might feel like they have the power to say some things in return to when you're getting on them and when you're coaching them up. That's something to keep an eye on. How does he balance those two things in this decision, and what kind of money does Georgia put up to try and keep him around this program a little while longer? Okay, so I wanted to get those things out of the way. We're going to be really brief on this. The running back room. We've already talked about receiver. We've talked about quarterback. Running back, there's really not a whole lot to discuss because the room's great. There's really no faults, right? You've got Kendall Milton and you've got Branson Robinson. I think that is going to be a powerful 1-2 punch. You've got Dejan Edwards, who shifty, can drive the pile. He's shorter. Sometimes those shorter backs, especially at the college level, you can kind of squirt through those holes a little bit. It ends up working out to their benefit. And then you've got Andrew Paul, and he tore his ACL last year. It'll be interesting to see what he does. But he was supposed to be, or at least the reports out of camp last year were tremendous when it came to what he was bringing to practice every day. And then, of course, he had the injury and wasn't able to participate this year. So their room is great. There's a void, though, when it comes to the offensive schematics, and something that Todd Monkin, going back to him, dialed up so effectively based on one particular running back skill set. And that running back was obviously Kenny McIntosh. Kenny McIntosh, at one point, early in the year was leading Georgia in receiving. And it wasn't just dump offs that he was taking. I mean, this guy can flat out run routes, go down the field, and catch passes as a receiver. It's why I think he is going to be an absolute steal for a team. I think his production at Georgia, because they divvy up all the carries, I don't know if he's going to be a first rounder, maybe even an early second rounder. I think he's going to fall into that James Cook category where he's going to be late second, maybe third round. Cook was obviously second round last year, but he could fall into that category. And if that's the case, I think a team's getting an absolute steal because he's shown that he can run between the tackles. He's shown that he can run outside. He's shown that he can catch passes out of the backfield. He's shown he can line up at slot and be a receiver. The guy can do it all. And Georgia, again, my lone criticism of this of the distribution is that they run too many guys and don't let them get into a rhythm. And so you never saw Kenny McIntosh get in a rhythm. You're not going to see that next year with this running back crew. Who am I to argue they've won 2 consecutive national titles? Doesn't matter what I think. It's maybe something I would like to see. They keep winning. I can't criticize. But they're not going to have that this year. You look at who returns, and I think that element of the offense is something that they're going to have to make up for some other way, unless Andrew Paul can be that guy. You're not really going to see that out of the other 3. I think we know what the other 3 guys can do. We've seen them on a regular basis. I think you got 2 power backs, and then you've got the change of pace guy in Dajan Edwards. And so Andrew Paul's kind of the unknown, and then they got the freshman coming in, and so maybe he can offer a little bit of that. But then again, if you're dividing up so many guys as it is, how do you then account for the receiving running back and whatnot? So I'll be interested to see how they evolve that position, or if it's something they kind of have to get away from and implement other aspects to this offense. I mean, granted, as we went over, the receivers that Georgia has, absolute burners coming into next year. So you're talking about tremendous speed all over the field at the receiver position. So you got Brock Bowers at tight end. He's crazy fast as it is. Oscar Delp should have a bigger role as a tight end who can he'll fill in for what Darnell Washington did for this offense. And so they've still got plenty of weapons. You just wonder when it comes to running back, really that receiving threat, who's going to be that guy? And I think that's the one void that position is dealing with at the moment, and something that this group will have to kind of figure out if it can do and or utilize in 2023, or if it's something they'll have to kind of scrap and look elsewhere. So, hey, with that in mind, we will go ahead and close today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, share, do all that good stuff with this video. And if you haven't, go to the UGAsports.com dog vent and subscribe there. It's the best community for UGA sports fans on the World Wide Web. Thank you so much for tuning in. You guys have been awesome. I've been Jason Butt. Y'all take care.